Hello and welcome back. Hope everybody's been fine. Uh, I figured I'd do a little something on this HR 127 of the 117th Congress. We all know that they're constantly coming up with some sort of amendment they want to make or some sort of something. And so, yeah, I figured I'd just give people a little bit of time to come on in, if anybody does. And I can't remember what it was, but it was like a couple years ago they tried to pass another something, but this bill, what they're trying to pass here, this is just crazy. I mean, you want to talk about going after the Second Amendment right off the bat, real quick. But yeah, what I'm going to do is I actually have the bill pulled up. This is what they are trying to enforce. HR 127, Sabika Shekin Firearm Licensing and Registration Act. And this is the actual bill, and I'll go through this, read it right out. And to provide for the licensing of firearm and ammunition possession and the registration of firearms, and to prohibit the possession of certain ammunition. So licensing of firearm and ammunition. So we're going to have, they want us to, if you have 300 long 22 rounds, they want to know that. If you have 30-06 rounds, they want to know that. If you have 15 rounds of a 12 gauge for your shotgun, they want to know that. Not only that, but they want to know every type of gun you have, the make, the model, the serial number. This bill is just nuts. Be it enacted by the Senate and House of Representatives of the United States of America in Congress assembled. Section 1, the short line. This act may be cited as the Sabika Sheik, whatever you want to say, Firearm Licensing and Registration Act. Licensing of firearms and ammunition possession, registration of firearms. In general, Chapter 44 of Title 18 United States Code is amended by adding at the end the following. So let's just check out this Chapter 44. And right here is what it's all done. And it has not been changed since 2004. So this goes to show that they've been slowly building onto this since it's come out. So licensing of firearm and ammunition possession, registration of firearms. In general, the Attorney General, through the Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, Firearms, and Explosives, shall establish a system for licensing, possession of firearms or ammunition in the United States, and for the registration with the Bureau of each firearm present in the United States. Firearm registration system. Required information. Under the firearm registration system, the owner of the firearm shall transmit to the Bureau make and model, serial number of the firearm, the identity of the owner of the firearm, the date the firearm was acquired by the owner, and where the firearm will be stored. So not only do they want to know the make, model, identity of the firearm itself, they want to know who the owner is, when they got it, and this part gets me, where it will be stored. So they want to know exactly where they can find this firearm when they come to get it. a notice specifying the identity of any person to whom and any period of time during which the firearm will be loaned to that person. So let's say we're out hunting, we're up to hunting camp, and my buddy Adam brought his 12 gauge because he was finding some real dense brush and doing some bird hunting. Well, he found he wants to sit in. Hey, Vern, let me borrow your 308. Oh, okay. That's the way it used to be. All right, here you go. Take the 308, go out in the wood, go right where you're going to go and go sit. Well, according to this, a notice specifying the identity of any person to whom and any period of time during which the firearm will be loaned to the person. So with what they're saying here, it's going to be, hey, Vern, let me borrow your 308. Oh, wait, hold on. Let me notify the Attorney General and let them know that you're borrowing my 308 today to go hunt a certain spot that you found. Yeah. Deadline for supplying the information. Transmission required by paragraph 1 shall be made. In case of firearm acquired before the effective date of this section, within 3 months after the effective date of this section, or in the case the firearm acquired on or after the effective date, on the date of the owner acquires the firearm. So pretty much as soon as you buy it, you have 3 months, as I think it says here. Okay, so it's, if you have the gun before this section, you have 3 months to let them know that you have it. In case of a firearm acquired on or after the effective date, on the date of the ownership required. So as soon as you buy a gun, if you go to Joe Schmo down the street who has a, let's say a 270 up for sale, you want to grab it, you actually have to get in touch with them and let them know that the owner is being transferred, the database. In general, the Attorney General shall establish and maintain the database of all firearms registered pursuant of this subsection. The access, all right, this is what gets me. The Attorney General shall make the contents of the database accessible to all members of the public, your neighbors, everybody who lives around you, all federal, state, and local law enforcement authorities, all branches of the United States Armed Forces, and all state and local governments as defined by the Bureau. Not only do they want everybody, the military to know where it is, your state troopers, your county troopers, your town police, they want your neighbors to know exactly what kind of gun you have, where it's stored, how much ammunition you have. All right. When I went through this thing, it just blew my mind. The licensing system, requirements. General license, except as otherwise provided in the subsection, the Attorney General shall issue to an individual a license to possess a firearm and ammunition if the individual. So he's going to the Attorney General is going to issue the firearm license. Okay, but now here's the thing. Has attained 21 years of age. So in other words, you got to be 21 or older. After paying for the license, okay, undergoes, and this is right where these are the subsections that are pretty mind-blowing. Undergoes a criminal background check, which we already have. I mean, there's a law out there. I remember when I went and got my nephew's gun, they had to run me through the federal database to make sure I could get it. Background check conducted by the National Instant Criminal Background Check System established under Section 103 of the Brady Handgun Violence Violence Prevention Act. And the check does not indicate the possession of firearm by the individual would violate subsection G or A of section 922 or state law. Undergoes a psychological evaluation conducted in accordance with paragraph 2, which we'll be getting to that here soon. And the evaluation does not indicate that the individual is psychologically unsuited to possess a firearm, and successfully completes a training course certified by the Attorney General in the use, safety, storage of firearms that includes at least 24 hours of training, and demonstrates on the issuance of the license the individual will have an effective insurance policy issued under subsection D. So, okay, you're going to be going through a background check. You're going to be going through a psychological check, which if they actually don't, which the background check, yes, I can understand that. The psychological check, if they don't want you to have a gun, whoever they send you to can pretty much say, you know, I found that he has some suicidal tendencies, or he or she is a little off. It off-put me with their answers to these questions. So it's going to be too easy for them to tell someone you cannot own a gun. All right. Antique firearm display license. So like when I had my 1976 Jakar, it was a replica of the gun that like Daniel Boone and them used. That wasn't, and it was pretty much a display, but it was usable. The Attorney General shall issue to the individual a license to display an antique firearm in a residence of the individual if the individual is the holder of the license issued under subsection subparagraph A, supplies proof that the individual owns an antique firearm, describes the manner in which the firearm will be displayed in accordance. So in other words, they want to know, is it going to be in a glass case? Is it going to be just hanging on hooks? How are you going to have this on display in your house? Demonstrates that the individual has provided a storage of firearms in a safe or facility approved by the Attorney General for the storage of firearms. Now, that means with just this one section right here, it says it's got to be in some kind of a case. You can't just have it hanging above your door or above your fireplace, like a lot of people have done. Military-style weapon license. The Attorney General shall issue to an individual a license to own and possess military-style weapon if the individual is the holder of a license under subparagraph A. After applying for a license, this subparagraph successfully complete training course certified by the Attorney General in the use of the safety and storage of the weapon that includes at least 24 hours of live fire training. So they want to take and send all of us who know how to use guns. We practice, and you practice gun safety. They still want you to go to these classes and have 24 hours of training on how to shoot your gun that you've probably owned for years. Psychological evaluation. Once again, and it just goes through exactly what that is. The evaluation is conducted in compliance with such standards that shall be established by the Attorney General. This is putting a lot of power in the Attorney General. The evaluation is conducted by a licensed psychologist approved by the Attorney General. Once again, somebody in their back pocket who they don't want people to have guns. You know how easy it's going to be for them to say something as deemed necessary by the licensed psychologists involved. The evaluation includes a psychological evaluation of other members of the household in which the individual resides. So the way that this is if you have someone in your house who is already mentally handicapped, may suffer from depression, any sort of a handicap stage, dementia, Alzheimer's, that's reason for denial. That's reason to tell you, no, you can't have a gun because of the other people that you have living in your house. And it might be a situation, right, where you have your father living with you because he's in the early stages of Alzheimer's or early stages of dementia, and he's living with you, or you moved in with them to help out, to be there for him if they need it. But yet that's going to hold you, according to this, that's going to hold you from being able to get a license to have your gun. Denial of license. Required, the Attorney General shall deny such a license to individuals if the individual is prohibited by federal law for possessing firearms, or the individual has been hospitalized. All right, the hospitalized, this is with a mental illness, disturbance, diagnosis, including depression, homicide, suicide, attempted suicide, or addiction to controlled substances with the meaning of the Controlled Substance Act, or alcohol, or a brain disease, including dementia or Alzheimer's. So if you drink, like with me, I have a couple OUIs. Hey, guess what? You drank, alcohol's a problem for you. I'm sorry, you can't have a gun. So they're pulling out all the stops on account of conduct that endangers self or others. I've got a driving to endanger charge against me when I was younger. I took off from a parking lot, squealing my tires. Some kids didn't like it. They called the cops. I got a driving to endanger. So guess what? That is conduct that endangers self or others, because I squealed my tires in my car, and the license literally says driving to endanger. So there's already a couple strikes for me with the way that this is written. The Attorney General may decide such a license to an individual if the psychological evaluation in paragraph 2 indicates that the individual has a chronic mental illness or disturbance or a brain disease referred to paragraph A, section 2, II, however they do it, is addicted to a controlled substance with the meaning of Controlled Substance Act or alcohol, or has attempted to commit suicide, or prior psychological treatment or evaluation of the individual indicates that the individual engaged in conduct that pose a danger to oneself or others. Okay, and here it is, the suspension of the license. We knew they couldn't go without being able to pull this license out from underneath you. A license issued on this subsection to any individual who is under indictment for a crime punishable by the imprisonment of a term exceeding 1 year is hereby suspended. So all you got to do is have a lawyer asking for a year in jail, and you're going to lose your license because you got a lawyer who has a hair across their ass that day, or you did something that they completely disagree with, and even when they're going for something that you won't get as a punishment, you're indicted for it, and they're asking for a year. So the license will be suspended under that situation. Authorized for lack of firearm insurance. All right, the Attorney General may suspend the license issued under the subsection to the individual who has violated Section 922 DD the most recent 12-month period. So you got to insure, it's saying right there, you got to insure every one of your guns and your ammunition, because that's also included in all this. Revocation of license. The license issued under the subsection of individuals who or becomes prohibited by federal law from possessing a firearm is hereby revoked. Such an individual shall immediately return the license and surrender all firearms and ammunition owned or possessed by the individual to the Attorney General. Expiration of the license. A license issued to individuals under subsection shall expire. Okay. In the case of the license that has been in effect for less than 5 years, 1 year after issuance, a renewal in the case may be, or in the case of a license that has been in effect for at least 5 years, 3 years after the most recent date license is renewed. So it looks like they're giving a little bit of leeway there with that. Like you have a year to renew your license, you have 3 years. Renewal of license, which right here it says 3 years after most recent date. 1 year. Okay, so no, this is saying, okay, if you haven't had your license for 5 years, anything from 1 to 5 years, it's 1 year after issuance. So every year you've got to go have your license renewed. If you've had your license for over 5 years, it's every 3 years you have to have your license renewed. Renewal of license. The Attorney General shall renew a license issued to an individual under subsection if the individual requests the renewal by the end of the 60-day period that begins within the date of the license expires. So if you know, like people with their driver's license, I've been in cars, you know, oh, wow, man, my license is expired. Or somebody else tells someone their ID is expired. This is just another way that they can actually say, hey, you know what? You let this license expire. Now you got to give us your guns. In the 3-year period ending with the date the renewal is requested, has met the requirements of paragraph 1A, subsection II, subsection 2, and has successfully completed training course of the certified of the Attorney General in the use, safety, and storage of firearms that indicate at least 8 hours of training. So, okay, you got to have 8 hours of training and 24 hours of live fire practice, live fire training, not practice, training. You're not going out to just gun range for 24 hours. Okay. Let's just go to the in general. The Attorney General shall issue to any person who has applied for the license pursuant of subsection C and has paid the Attorney General the fee specified in paragraph 2 of the subsection a policy the insures the person against liability or loss or damages resulting in the use of any firearm by any person during the 1-year period that begins with the date the policy is issued. Okay. The fee specified in this paragraph is $800. Now, you guys, you got to get licensed for every gun you own. If you have 10 guns, you have to come up with 10 grand. That's the way I'm reading this. Military style weapon defined. So they've been saying assault style weapons. We've heard of military style weapons and all this in some of these shootings and stuff. So let's see. Section 921A of such title is amended by inserting after paragraph 29 the following. 30. The term of military style weapons means any of the firearms or copies or duplicate of firearms in any caliber known as Norinco, and Polytechnical Avtomat Kalashnikovs, all models. Action arms, Israeli military Industries, UZI and Galil, Beretta or A70, Colt, AR-15. And it goes on and it says all these guns. And here's one that gets me. Revolving cylinder shotguns such as or similar to the Street Sweeper or Striker 12. A semi-automatic rifle that has the ability to accept a detached magazine and has at least two of the following: a folding or telescoping stock, pistol grip. You can mount a bayonet to it. You can mount a flash suppressor or threaded barrel designed to accommodate a flash suppressor, a grenade launcher, a semi-automatic pistol that has the ability to accept detachable magazines and has at least two of these, ammunition magazine that attaches to the pistol outside of the pistol grip, threaded barrel capable of accepting a barrel extender, flash suppressor, and so on. So see, they literally are pistol grip. They're literally going after everything. And the one who wrote this law sat down and did some serious thinking on everything they could do to try to prevent people from being able to have firearms here in America. Deadline for establishment: within 1 year after the date of the enactment of this act, the Attorney General shall prescribe final regulations and implement the amendments made by this subsection. So, yeah, all fine and dandy. This happens, so it does get through the House, it gets through the Senate, it gets through everything, it becomes a law. They have 1 year after the law becomes in act for the Attorney General to actually change the regulations and to implement the amendments. So anything they say they want to do, they can actually change it. That right there, people, that is very, very, very uneasy, knowing that they're trying to sneak that in there also. It shall be unlawful for any person to possess a firearm or ammunition unless the person is carrying a valid license issued under subsection 932. In the case of firearm owned by that person, the firearm is registered to that person. In the case of firearm owned by another person, the firearm is so registered to such other person, and such other person has notified the Attorney General that the firearm has been loaned to the person and the possession during in which loan period is specified and noticed. So that goes back to, you can't just let your neighbor or your best friend or your cousin or your uncle borrow your gun to go out and go hunting. It shall be unlawful for a person to transfer a firearm or ammunition to a person who is not licensed under section 932. So even if someone wants to borrow your gun, they have to be licensed to be able to carry a gun, to possess a gun. You guys, this is getting, just this part blows my mind. Okay, a person who possesses a firearm or to whom a license is issued under section 932 shall have in effect an insurance policy issued under section 932. Once again, the insurance policy, they're coming up with all kinds of money things here. $800 a license. You have to have it insured. What do they want you to insure each bullet? Come on now. Okay, whoever knowingly violates section 922 AA shall be fined not less than $75,000 and not more than $150,000, imprisoned for not less than 15 years and not more than 25 years, or both. Whoever knowingly violates section 922 BB1 shall be fined no less than 50, no more than 75, imprisoned for 10 years. 922 BB2 shall not shall be fined no less than 30,000 and not more than 50,000, 5 years. 922 BB3 shall be, so they even already have right here the penalties. What the fines are going to be. Okay. And now they're also even going on Section 922 of Title 18 United States Code, as amended by Section 2 of the Act, is amended by adding at the end of the following: it shall be unlawful for any person to possess ammunition that is .50 caliber or greater. Okay. There's a fellow YouTuber that he's pretty cool, and he actually put out a video of shooting his muzzleloader. 50 cal muzzleloader. That's what mine was. That means 50 cal. Does that mean you cannot have your balls, your lead balls for your 50 caliber muzzleloader? It shall be unlawful for any person to possess large capacity ammunition feeding device. The manufacture for or possession by the United States or the Department of Agency of the United States and State Department agency, political subdivision of state, of the possession by law enforcement officer, such entity for the purpose of law enforcement, whether on or off duty. And this is people this shall not apply to. The possession of by the employer of a contractor or a license under Title I of the Atomic Energy Act of 1954, manufactured possession license, by the Attorney General. So pretty much what they're saying is you have to hand over your firearms if you don't register them. If you don't, hey, Jesus first, always. Hello and welcome. That sentence alone to them is considered hate speech or violence, because these people are whacked and write their bills wide open like this to apply to anyone they don't like. Exactly. I agree with that 100%. But yeah, so this bill is pretty much saying they need to know every firearm you have in your house, when it was made, the year, make, model, the caliber, where it's going to be stored, how it's going to be stored, who may use it. And the thing that gets me is, okay, we'll go back to deer hunting. This goes down through a lot of families. You are not allowed, according to this bill, under the age of 21, you are not allowed to possess a firearm. And it point blank says that. So take like my nephew, Mikey. He shot his first deer, I think he was 14 years old. Well, that's quite a few years under the age of 21. According to what I've read in this and the way I interpret it, which interpretation could be, everybody reads it, will interpret it different. He would not be allowed to have gone out and gone hunting with me. Now, hunting is a big part of many families here, and what are they doing? Trying to take people, passing that information down, in most families, it's been a long-term thing that the family goes out and hunts together. The uncles, aunts, uncles teach the nephews, the parents teach their kids. And I just think it seems sad that they're trying to completely eliminate all that. And this bill, it's going way too far. I mean, you wouldn't even be able to loan your gun to your neighbor unless your neighbor has a license for one, which you got to find out if your neighbor has a license. And then they cannot have the gun until you get in touch with the Attorney General, and the Attorney General says, okay, they've got to approve you loaning your gun to someone for them to go out and go hunting or something. They may just want to try shooting that type of gun because they're interested in buying one like that. So they want to shoot it and see what it feels like. So it's just total, total BS in my book. All right. Now, with that being said, and us knowing that this is their next step in coming after us being able to own guns, let's go to the next thing I want to share. And this is actually just a little something that I found. And there it is. Let's zoom right in on this one. All right, you guys. Enslaved Native Americans played central role in the 1600s New England households. Washington in 1614, 6 years before the Mayflower crossed, the English explorer John Smith led 2 ships to survey the New England coast. As he described in his history of New England, Smith left shipmaster Thomas Hunt behind to fish and trade with the natives. But Hunt saw another opportunity in another kind of trade. He kidnapped 27 Wampanoags and sailed to Spain, where he sold their poor, innocent souls into slavery. All right. And among them was Tisquantum and Squanto, the Winnipeg man from Pawtuxet, later Plymouth, who later helped negotiate peace between the Pilgrims and the Winnipeg Massasoit, Omusquag, Osamoquin, and who would help the newcomers through their first year at Plymouth. So this is long before, the slavery that we all learned about in school. And historic accounts state that while Squanto was enslaved, Spanish friars helped him escape to England, where he lived with a shipbuilder and eventually returned to America. So slavery in America is usually associated with African and the American South. But Ohio State University historian Margaret Ellen Newell told VOA that up till 1700, Native Americans comprised the majority of slaves in America. The first documented case was 1605, when an English expedition captured 4 Wampanoags in what's now Maine and brought them back to London, Newell said. The expedition was run by a man named Fernando Gorges, who hoped to establish a colony in northern New England and who was looking for captives to use as guidance and interpreters. Since the start of their settlement, Puritan colonists sought Indians as indentured servants and as a solution to labor shortages, he said. Okay, so this actually went on for quite a while, and a lot of people didn't know about it because, of course, as we're taught about slavery, it is the African slave trade that we usually hear about. Okay, England did not have a clear law on slavery the way that countries like in the Mediterranean who were using Roman law did. But English law did allow indentured servitude. Courts could sentence the beggars and the vagrants to the terms forced labor and even place children into service without parental consent. The lines between slavery and servitude often blurred, both in England and in New England, Newell said. Some of the people were set free after the set term as indentured servants, she said, but some were kept for life. Okay. Oh, where was it? In 1641, Massachusetts passed the so-called Body of Liberties, a list of 98 rights, liberties, and privileges as a reference for general court. The new law essentially banned slavery, Newell said, but I think the point was to permit the practice. It started out saying that no one can be enslaved except people who are captured in a just war. In other words, people like the Pequots, and some historians believe that the fear of enslavement helped spark the 1675 King Philip's War between Plymouth Colony and the Wampanoag, the bloodiest conflict of the period, and that the war set off the boom of slavery trade. Captives and servants were put on trial and detailed the land of their land. This land is their land, by George Washington University historian David J. Silverman. So perhaps 2,000 Indian women, children, even somehow convinced the English they had done no harm, received sentences of slavery, he wrote. So before the slavery that we were all taught about in school, there was the Native Americans. They took them in as their slaves. So I came across that piece and I figured it was something interesting to show that slavery has been part of America since before America was America. And to be honest with you, even knowing that law was written in Massachusetts, after that, they still kept going on with slavery. And to this day, there's still some sort of slavery here in America. So I'll end it with that. I hope you guys found me pulling out the HR 127 helps to bring up some information for you. And I hope that you found that little piece of history, hidden piece of history, a little educational. Thanks for stopping in. Thanks for watching. Please like, share, subscribe. And remember, stay safe, stay alert, and always do things the way they work best for you. Thank you.